Folks, something a little different today. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind this year, a topic that by no means is an original thought, but I'd like to give my perspective on it and hear what you've got to say. I want to talk about the old world and the new. In case you hadn't realised yet, you're watching Louis Vuitton. Thanks for stopping by. So the old world, the new world, what do I mean by this? When I talk about a concept, I'm referring to attitudes held concerning certain social issues, cultural values, and industries or institutions. Do you ever just listen to someone talk and feel like mentally their thought process is straight out of the last century? I'm not just talking about boomer brain, it goes beyond that. What's been on my mind is this sense of a divisive schism on how certain issues are approached. Example, education. I know a good chunk of you had at least one teacher that should have retired years ago. Somebody that approaches teaching with an immutable attitude, their way or not at all. The kind of teaching that you know has been the industry norm for decades, but despite this approach not suiting every student's learning style, it's dogmatically pursued, and if it doesn't work for you, it's your problem, not theirs. Talking of education, how many of you ever spoke to your school's counsellor? The person your school has employed to ensure their students' mental well-being. If yours are anything like mine, they're a joke. And this leads into another example, mental health. You want to talk about old world attitudes? Is there any more social issue, more indicative of an old world mindset than how people approach mental health? Jesus, the way some people dismiss mental health, it's a wonder they can barely function at all. Before we get into the topic for real, I just want to make clear, this is not a division based on age. When it comes down to a lot of social attitudes, a lot of the responses do tend to fall on a generational line. But this isn't necessarily an argument for old people to piss off and take their conservative ideas elsewhere. That said, let's get into it by starting with the pronounced gap between Gen Y and Gen Z. Every generation experiences a generational disconnect with the ones that come after, but it seems to me that the gap between X's and older millennials and Zoomers is especially wide. There's certain ideas, values and beliefs that come so naturally to Zoomers. The internet is probably the most obvious example. To use the anthropological term, Gen Z are what you would refer to as natives of the internet. There hasn't been a moment of their lives where they haven't been connected. It's like a second language. There are still people today, young people too, sometimes they're millennials, that don't fully grasp just how entrenched the internet is in our modern world. They just don't get the internet. Do you know what I mean? Like, unless you've grown up on it, you just don't get the internet. I know that's terribly inarticulate, but I hope you understand my meaning. It really is like a whole other language, understanding its trends, the ebbs and flows, how people conduct themselves, understanding social capital. Trying to make someone who didn't grow up online understand its workings is like trying to describe water to a fish. You either live in the new world, or not at all. And to tie the two previous points together, how many of you told your school counsellors you were being bullied online, and how many of them told you to just log off? Yeah, the old world. Let me get back to Gen Z. Zoomers, I'm not exaggerating when I say that it's going to fall to you to be the generation that saves the world. Actually, let me be even more precise and make it clear. We have no choice. We have to save the world. We have 5, 10, maybe 15 years before climate change really starts to ramp up. If we haven't sufficiently changed how we live by then, it's the end of the world. No joke. But hold on. I didn't write this episode just to doom. I made it to commemorate the Zoomers. I have so much fucking faith in Gen Z. I see how a lot of them approach modern issues. Attitudes towards certain things come naturally for them. The internet, mental health, the myth of meritocracy. I also believe that the challenges Gen Z will face are of much greater consequence than previous ones. Now, this is not to diminish the achievements made by previous generations. Every generation has faced hardship and has striven towards change to make the world a better place. The work done for racial justice by the boomer generation and their parents. The advocacy for queer rights, normality and acceptance by the millennials. While the work of previous generations is by all means no small feat, I have the feeling the trials Gen Z will face will be on a global scale. I'm talking about crises like climate change, mental health, systemic racism, issues that affect people regardless of geographical location or culture. And while I'm doing my best not to blame it on the age gap, the purpose of this episode is to point out the danger of old world attitudes in our institutions. And these divisions between mindsets tend to fall on a generational line. So, to get back to the point, if we, as a species, are to survive, we need more young, passionate people in positions of power, capable of making change in our society. Let's talk about an example. Politics. old world politicians still conform to the idea of civility politics. They haven't caught up to the idea yet that civility politics is over. Donald Trump has seen to that. We are not going back. That era of politics is done. And frankly, I don't want to go back. After the success of Donald Trump, right-wing voters won't want another stuffed suit. Right-wing populism has become far too entrenched in the voter base. Right-wing Americans want another Trump. Right-wing Australians want their own Trump. I guarantee that anyone on the right in Australia critical of Scott Morrison wishes he was more like Trump. The old world right likes Scott because he conforms to civility politics, the concepts that exist in Australia, for now, but it's only a matter of time until the right-wing populist comes along and empowers the right-wing base to the degree that Trump did in America. Bernie Sanders is an example of a left-wing populist, somebody that inspires people, somebody that empowers the population, someone who, despite his age, lives in the new world, baby. Alright, so we know what the goal is. What do we do to get there? Well, that's where you come in, Zoomers, because you can almost guarantee that you'll be switched on to a modern way of thinking. So we need to stack the fuck out of our country's institutions with young, progressively minded people. I'm talking politics, education, justice, social work. Get young, idealistically minded people who, most important of all, can't be bought into positions of power where they're able to make substantive, systemic change. The issues I'm talking about seem insurmountable, but not only can you, as a young person, make change, you don't have to do it alone. So let's talk about young people making change, and let's be honest, could I begin with anyone other than AOC? Y'all forgive me, I'm bad as simp. But hey, in this case, it's pretty fucking understandable. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a United States Congresswoman representing New York's 14th Congressional District. At 29, she was the youngest woman ever elected to Congress. She is an impassioned, populist lefty. This year she ran for re-election and won by an overwhelming margin. Her engagement with her community assured her victory. They supported her because she pushes for the issues the people care about, not the politicians. Over in Australia, we don't have our own version of the squad. However, we do have Senator Jordan Steeljohn, a Western Australian senator. Now 26, Jordan took his position at 23. Now this is what I'm talking about, young people in politics. Jordan advocates for disability rights in particular. Unfortunately, he's from the Green Party. Can't win them all, but I'll take what I can get. Moving on. You want to talk about young people advocating for change? Show me a better example than Greta Thunberg. Girl started her own climate movement at 15. Don't tell me it can't be done, and don't tell me young people can't do it. Shifting fields, but still on the topic of passionate, influential young people. ContraPoints. When it comes to online creators, few come close to ContraPoints when it comes to making effective and compelling arguments for social issues. The size of ContraPoints' support base is indicative of the degree to which she's able to effectively advocate for her positions. ContraPoints is young, passionate, and progressively minded. Exactly the kind of person we want producing content for young, progressively minded people developing a social conscience who go looking for influences upon which to base their beliefs upon. Last of all, I want to talk about Vosh. Vosh is easily one of the most effective political content creators out there. He's young, and his channel is one of the fastest growing on the platform. When I was a teenager and became interested in politics and social issues, I went looking for people like Vosh. When you're young, you have the passion, but you might not have the means to put it into words. And that's where people like Vosh come in. Young, passionate, competent, politically minded content creators that we can form communities around to help advocate for our ideas. I want to finish off this episode by making an appeal, not just to Zoomers, but to every generation. Our culture needs to change how we relate authority to age. Again, going back to politics, people of younger generations are not seen as competent. This needs to change. There's this idea that with age comes experience and wisdom, which is a requirement to serve in politics? Bullshit! How's that working out for us thus far? We need young, idealistic people in politics, but to get that, we need to change the culture, make it a more welcoming place for people under 40, under 30 even. Do you want somebody impassioned about your rights, your future, and justice? Or do you want someone that just sees it like a job? I'll give you some advice. Only one can survive in the new world. Thank you all for watching. That was my thoughts on the old world and the new. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Let me know about some experiences you've had with the old world in your life down in the comments. I'm Louis Vuitton and I'll see you all soon.